Kira and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be finding out exactly how many of the books from the Rory Gilmore reading list I've actually read. And to be honest, this is probably just going to turn into me massively calling myself out for a whole video because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of books on this list that I still need to read, and definitely more TBR books than ones I've actually read. But I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. I haven't actually read this list all the way through yet, so I have no idea how many I actually have read or haven't. So it's going to be a very, very interesting video. But honestly, I just love Gilmore Girls so much. It's such an incredible TV show, and it's probably my favourite TV show of all time. It's something I feel like I talk about relatively frequently in my videos just because it's, like, for me, the ultimate cosy and comforting show. So whenever I'm filming a cozy reading vlog, I almost always end up putting on an episode of Gilmore Girls just because it is literally coziness and comfort in just a TV show format. It's a show that I grew up watching as well, so it feels so nostalgic, and in particular when I was watching it whilst growing up, I was such a massive Rory Gilmore fangirl because I was someone who loved reading growing up and loved English literature and all kinds of things to do with books, and so Rory was the ultimate idol, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. And even now, as a 23-year-old who has graduated from university and has an English degree, there's still a part of me that wishes I was Rory Gilmore and that I got to go and do that degree at Yale University because Gilmore Girls just made it look so incredible. I feel like there's always going to be a part of me that wishes that I actually was Rory. And interestingly, whilst I was watching Gilmore Girls growing up, my mum loved it as well, and she would always tell me that I looked like Rory, and I was like, oh yeah, thanks mum, thinking that she was just being nice because I also liked reading. But since starting this booktube channel, I've actually had quite a few comments saying that I look like Rory, so maybe my mum wasn't just saying it to be nice and it actually is true. So if that's the case, I definitely want to be like Rory even more and just embody that. So I feel like a good place to start is actually by reading all of the books that are mentioned in Gilmore Girls. So that is exactly what we're going to do today, and I feel like this is just going to prove that I'm definitely not quite on Rory's level because she is probably one of the most well-read fictional characters that have ever been written, and so I've probably got quite a bit of work to do before I'm on her level, but got to start by figuring out exactly how many I still have left to read. So there is actually a quiz on BuzzFeed which lets you see exactly how many of them you've read, so I'm going to do that now. I'll record the screen so that you can see exactly which books I'm talking about, and let's get into it. Okay, so I'm on the BuzzFeed quiz and it says that a total of 339 books are featured or mentioned in Gilmore Girls. So let's see how many I've read. Okay. Alright, we're off to a good start. 1984 by George Orwell I have read. It's one that I read quite a long time ago and probably would like to revisit because I do love dystopians and I love George Orwell in general as an author. Although I would say of the books of his that I've read, 1984 is probably my least favourite from what I can remember. Animal Farm is one which I think is absolutely incredible and probably my favourite of his books. And then I've also read a collection of his essays called Shooting an Elephant, which is really, really incredible, and I absolutely loved that. I read that whilst I was at university, so 1984 is my least favourite, but maybe if I revisited it, it would be different. So I have read that. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain I've read, but I did not really like. And then it goes downhill from here. Alice in Wonderland is on my shelves, but I haven't read it. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon, haven't even heard of. Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, haven't read. Okay, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, I have read. I read that at the beginning of 2019, in January of that year. Absolutely loved it. My favourite Tolstoy. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Okay, Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank is one that I haven't read. I really, really want to though, so I'm definitely going to try and get a copy because I do think that would be an incredible thing to read, and I find the sort of history surrounding World War II particularly interesting, so I definitely want to read that. The Arcadian War by Donald Kagan, another one I haven't heard of. The Art of Fiction by Henry James, I have read. That was on my reading list at university. The Art of War by Sun Tzu, I haven't read. As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, I haven't read. Atonement by Ian McEwan. This is one that I struggle with because from the synopsis, I do think that this book sounds kind of interesting, but I have a little bit of a thing against Ian McEwan because I studied one of his books at A-level and I just absolutely despised it. And ever since then, I haven't really felt much motivation or desire to read anything else by Ian McEwan. So maybe this is one I need to try and get over and see whether it was Enduring Love that I read by him that I really didn't like, so I need to maybe get over it, read another book, maybe start with Atonement and see whether it was just like Enduring Love that I hated or whether I just don't really like his work in general. Autobiography of a Face by Lucy Grayley, haven't read. The Awakening by Kate Chopin, haven't read. Babe by Dick King-Smith, have not read. Oh dear. Backlash, the Undeclared War Against American Women by Susan Faludi, I have not read that. Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress, that sounds cute, by Di C.J., and I have not read that. Bel Canto by Anne Pratchett, have not read that. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, have read that, thank God. Got to get one in there. Okay, Beloved by Toni Morrison is on my TBR, but I have not read it yet. Beowulf, I've read segments and little snippets at university because I had a professor who was like really into like medieval literature, but I never actually read the entirety, so I'm not going to tick that one. The Bhagavad Gita I have actually read. This is actually a book which I read, funnily enough, as part of the Gilmore Girls readathon that was hosted, I think, last October. And I read this one because it was on the reading list for my yoga teacher training, so I've now read it a couple of times. And it's essentially a like scripture from like it's a very, very old scripture, and it focuses on yoga and Hinduism, and it's basically like a conversation between our main character Arujna and then the god Krishna, who's guiding him on the path to enlightenment. So the Bhagavad Gita is actually really interesting, so I'm glad I've read that. The Bielski Brothers by Peter Duffy, nope. Bitch in Praise of Difficult Women by Elizabeth Wurtzel, haven't read that. A Bolt from the Blue and Other Essays by Mary McCarthy, have not read that. This is looking like a lot of haven't read that, but we knew that going in, we're fine. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, love that. That is one of my favourite dystopians. I think it's incredible. And when you consider that it was only written in the 1930s, it becomes even more incredible because it is so progressive and ahead of its time in terms of the way that it looks at like sort of critiquing structures of society and how that entire dystopian universe is built. I just think it's incredible. Brick Lane by Mona Ali, haven't read that. Brigadoon by Alan J. Lerner, haven't read that. Candide by Voltaire, haven't read that. The Canterbury Tales by Chaucer, haven't read that, but I feel like I've read some of it, but not enough to even recall what happened, so I'm going to go with no. Carrie by Stephen King, I have read that. It's probably my least favourite Stephen King, to be honest, just because it's written in a slightly strange way and it has a bit of a weird format. It's written in like snippets and excerpts as if it's like looking at something in terms of like a study, so it's written in like textbook format and from memoirs and things rather than just as a like standard prose, and so I didn't really love it that much. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, not read but is on my TBR. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, I have read and I do enjoy that book. It's not my favourite but is nice, I like it. Charlotte's Web, I have not read. The Children's Hour by Lillian Hellman, haven't read. Christine by Stephen King, haven't read but do want to. A Clockwork Orange, oh I missed one. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, I have read. A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, I have read. The Code of the Woosters by P.G. Wodehouse, nope, don't know what that is. Collected Short Stories by Eudora Welty, nope. Comedy of Errors, I have read by William Shakespeare. Complete Novels by Dawn Powell, nope. Complete Poems by Anne Sexton, nope. Complete Stories by Dorothy Parker, nope. And A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole, have not read. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, I haven't read, but funnily enough, Jay actually literally just bought that from the bookshop, so I'll wait and see what he thinks of it, because I like reading classics, but I also like reading lots of other things, whereas Jay really, really likes his classics. So I'll wait and see what he thinks and then maybe come to it at some point. Cousin Bet by Honor de Balzac, nope. Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, nope. But it is on my TBR and actually one that I want to get to quite soon. The Crimson Petal and the White by Michael Faber, no. The Crucible by Arthur Miller, again, not read, but I actually do quite want to read this one because it's about obviously like witchcraft and Salem witch trials and that type of thing, and that's something that I find really interesting, and I don't think there's actually a great deal of fiction about this, so this one always comes up when you Google like texts about witchcraft, so I do want to read it. Cujo by Stephen King, haven't read, do want to. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, I have read, and I think this is such an incredible book. It's a book which is written from the perspective of a 15-year-old boy who has He's on the autistic spectrum and it's uncertain whether he has autism or Asperger's, but he is an incredible protagonist and you really get an incredible insight into just how differently someone who is on the autistic spectrum would perceive things, and it does a great job of just sort of giving you an insight into understanding how they maybe perceive things differently, and therefore allows you to really empathize and understand with how maybe you, as someone who isn't on the autistic spectrum, could do better in terms of communicating with someone to sort of speak to them in a way that makes it easier for them to understand. And I just think it's a really, really incredible book. It has a really interesting plot as well, but just in terms of giving you an insight into the experience of a young person who has autism or Asperger's, it's a really, really good book. I've read that multiple times actually, but I most recently read it as part of a module at university which was about cognitive differences, and the professor who was leading that module had 2 sons who had autism, and he absolutely loved the book in terms of it giving a really good insight into that experience. Then we have Daughter of Fortune by Isabel Allende, haven't read that. David and Lisa by Dr. Theodore Isaac Rubin, MD, fancy, haven't read that. David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, haven't read that. Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, haven't read that. Dead Souls by Nikolai Gogol, haven't read that, but Nikolai is my favourite name, so maybe we'll get to that at some point. Then we have Demons by Fyodor Dostoevsky, haven't read that. Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller, I have read that a long time ago, back in I must have been in year 9 or 10, so I would have been 14 or 15, so it's been a long time, but I did read that at school. Deanie by Judy Blume, haven't read. The Devil in the White City, Murder, Magic and Madness at the Fair That Changed America by Eric Larson, haven't read that, but that is an incredible title, it makes me intrigued. And then we have The Dirt, Confessions of the World's Most Notorious Rock Band by Tommy Lee, Vince Neil, Mick Mars and Nikki Sixx, no. The Divine Comedy by Dante, no. Divine Secrets of the Ya-Ya Sisterhood by Rebecca Wells, haven't read it, but again, fun title. Then we have, I'm probably going to end up butchering this title, Don Gito by Cervantes, haven't read it, but it's another one that funnily enough Jay literally just bought a copy of, so again, maybe at one point I'll read it at some point in the future. Driving Miss Daisy by Alfred Irv, haven't read that. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, I have read and really, really love. Then we have Edgar Allan Poe, Complete Tales and Poems, haven't read that. Eleanor Roosevelt by Blanche Wyson Cook, haven't read that. The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, weird title, by Tom Wolfe, haven't read that. Ella Minnow P, A Novel in Letters by Mark Dunn, haven't read that. Eloise by Kay Thompson, haven't read that. Emily the Strange by Roger Rager, haven't read that. Emma by Jane Austen, I have read. Empire Falls by Richard Russo, haven't read that. Encyclopedia Brown, Boy Detective by Donald J. Sobol, have not read that. Oh my goodness. Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton, haven't read that. Ethics by Spinoza, haven't read that. Europe Through the Back Door, 2003, weird title, by Rick Steves. Eve Luna by Isabel Allende. Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. Extravagance by Gary Christ. Fahrenheit 451, haven't read, by Ray Bradbury, but do want to. Fahrenheit 9/11 by Michael Moore, have not read. The Fall of the Athenian Empire by Donald Kagan. Fatland, How Americans Became the Fattest People in the World by Greg Kritzer, haven't read that and probably don't really need to because I do not live in America, so it doesn't really matter, to me anyway. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson, haven't read that. The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, but I haven't read it, but it is on my TBR, high on my TBR in the sense that I'm going to be reading it very, very soon. Fiddler on the Roof by Joseph Stein, I remember the episodes where it was talking about Fiddler on the Roof. The Five People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom, nope. Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, I haven't read this one. I do love James Joyce, so I will read it at some point. Fletch by Gregory MacDonald. Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This was really recommended to me quite recently, actually. The Fortress of Solitude by Jonathan Lethem. The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, I love. Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger, I haven't read. Freaky Friday by Mary Rogers, I didn't realise that was a book. Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut, nope. Gender Trouble by Judith Butler, I did read at university. George W. Bushism, the Slate's book of the accidental wit and wisdom of our 43rd president by Jacob Weisberg, not really on my radar. Gidget by Frederick Kona, no. Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kaysen, I have read and I actually wrote my dissertation on this book, so big fan. The Gnostic Gospels by Elaine Pagels, nope. The Godfather Book 1 by Mario Puzo, nope. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy, no. Goldilocks and the Three Bears by Alvin Granowski, no. Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, I have not read. The Good Soldier by Ford Maddox Ford, what an interesting name. First and last name are the same, weird. The Gospel According to Judy Blume, haven't read. The Graduate by Charles Webb, haven't read. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, I have not read. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, I have read. I love my rabbit, or one of my rabbits is called Gatsby, so you can clearly tell I like that book. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, I love, so I obviously have read. The Group by Mary McCarthy, I have not read. Hamlet by William Shakespeare, I haven't read actually, sadly. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, yes. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, yes. Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius by David Eggers, no. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, sadly I have read, I do not like this book. Then we have Helter Skelter, The True Story of the Manson Murders by Vincent Bugliosi and Kurt Gentry, I haven't read but I want to, I love things about like serial killers and true crime. Henry the Fourth, Part 1, Henry the Fourth, Part 2, Henry the Fifth by William Shakespeare, all of them I haven't read. High Fidelity by Nick Hornby, I haven't read, but I do love About a Boy by Nick Hornby, so I might try and get to this one. History and of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, no. Holidays on Ice, Stories by David Sedaris, no. The Holy Barbarians, no. House of Sand and Fog, no. House of Spirits, no. How to Breathe Underwater, no. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, pretty sure I read that when I was very, very young, so we're going to go with yes. How the Light Gets In, no. Howl by Allen Ginsberg, no. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I haven't read. The Iliad, I haven't read. Jay is actually currently reading it, so again, I'm just going to use him as my insight into all of these like ancient classics, and maybe if he likes them, I'll read them. I'm With the Band by Pamela Desbarres, no. In Cold Blood, no. Inferno by Dante, no. Inherit the Wind, no. Ironweed by William J. Kennedy, no. It Takes a Village, no. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, yes, I have read this. The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, no. Julius Caesar by Shakespeare, no. The Jumping Frog by Mark Twain, no. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, no. Couple of Days, no. The Kitchen Boy, no. Kitchen Confidential, no. The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, no, but it's on my list. I love Khaled Hosseini, so I do want to read that one. Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence, I have not read. The Last Empire, Essays, 1992 to 2000, no. Whew, deep breaths. The Legends of Bagger Vance, no. Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis, no. Letters to a Young Poet, no. Liars and the Lying Liars Who Tell Them by Al Franken, that sounds funny. Life of Pi by Jan Martel, no. Little Dorrit, no. The Little Locksmith, no. The Little Match Girl, no. Little Women, yes, I have read and love. Living History, no. Lord of the Flies, yes. The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson, no, but I do really like Shirley Jackson, so that can go on the list. The Lovely Bones, absolutely love that book. I think it is incredible. The Love Story by Eric Segal, no. Macbeth, my favourite Shakespeare play, yes. Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, no. The Manticore by Robertson Davies, no. Marathon Man, The Master and Margarita, on my list but haven't read yet. Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter by Simone de Beauvoir, no. Memoirs of a General, no. Me Talk Pretty One Day, no. The Meaning of Consuelo by Judith Oritz Kofer. I made such a mess of that entire title and name, but I haven't read it. Mencken's Chrestomathy by H.R. Mencken, no. The Merry Wives of Windsor by Shakespeare, no. Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, no. Middlesex by Geoffrey Eugenides, no. Miracle Worker by William Gibson, no. Moby Dick by Herman Melville, no. The Mojo Collection, No. Molière, a biography? No. The monetary history of the United States? No. Again, these ones that are very specific to the United States are really not that interesting to me. No offence. I just don't really need to know about the history of the United States. Or not like, that sounds bad. The monetary history doesn't really have any major tangible effect on my life, if that makes sense. Monsieur Proust by Celeste Albert? No. Month of Sundays? No. A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway? No. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf? Sadly not. Oh dear. My Life 4, A Report on the Massacre and Its Aftermath? No, but that does sound quite interesting. My Life as an Author and Editor by H.R. Mencken? My Life in Orange, Growing Up with the Guru? That sounds interesting, especially given that I'm doing yoga teacher training. That sounds quite cool. Myra Walder's Travel and Motoring Guide to Europe? No. My Sister's Keeper? Yes, I like that book. Not my favourite Jodi Picoult, but I do like it. The Naked and the Dead by Norman Mailer? No. The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco? No. The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri? No. The Nanny Diaries by Emma McLaughlin? No. Nervous System or Losing My Mind in Literature by Jan Lars Jensen? No. New Poems by Emily Dickinson? No. The New Way Things Work by David Macaulay? No. Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich? No. Night by Elie Wiesel? Yes. Not. No. Why did I say yes? No. Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen? Yes. The Norton Anthology of Theory and Criticism? Yes, I have read that because that is essential on I'm pretty sure every single English literature degree, that book is on there, so I have read that. Or at least the bits that are relevant, so I'm counting that. Novels by Dawn Powell? No. Notes of a Dirty Old Man by Charles Bukowski? No. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck? Yes. Old School by Tobias Wolff? No. On the Road by Jack Kerouac? No. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey? Yes, big fan. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez? No. The Opposite of Fate, Memories of a Writing Life by Amy Tan? No. Oracle Nights by Paul Auster? No. Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood? No, but I do have the book on my shelves. Othello by Shakespeare? No. Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens? No. The Outbreak of the Peloponnesian War by Donald Kagan? No. Out of Africa by Isaac Dynson? No. The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, I very recently read and absolutely loved. It was incredible, and I can't believe that she was only 17 when she wrote that book. That just, again, makes it even better. Absolutely loved it, like so much. A Passage to India by Ian Forster, haven't read. The Peace of Nicias and the Sicilian Expedition by Donald Kagan? No. Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky, one of my all-time faves? Yes. Peyton Place by Grace Metalius? No. The Picture of Dorian Gray? Yes. Pigs at the Trough by Ariana Huffington? No. Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi? No. Please Kill Me, The Uncensored Oral History of Punk by Legs McNeil and Gillian McCain? No. Polysyllabic Spree by Nick Hornby? No. The Portable Dorothy Parker by Dorothy Parker? The Portable Nietzsche? I should know how to say that. Nietzsche by Frederick Nietzsche. I'm so sorry that I can't say that word. Anyway, no. The Price of Loyalty, George W. Bush, The White House and the Education of Paul O'Neill by Ron Suskind? No. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen? Yes. Property by Valerie Martin? No. Pushkin, Biography by T.J. Binion? No. Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw? No. Quattrocento by James McKean? No. A Quiet Storm by Rachel Halsell Hall? No. Rapunzel by the Grimm Brothers? No. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe? No. The Razor's Edge by W. Somerset Maugham? No. Reading Lolita in Tehran, A Memoir in Books by Azar Nafisi. No, I have not read that. I haven't actually read Lolita in general. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Big fan. Love that book. Yes. Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm by Kate Douglas Wiggin. Jeez Louise, I feel like I cannot speak today. Should probably not be filming a video. Oh well. So, The Red Tent by Anita Diamant. No. Rescuing Patty Hearst. No. The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's with the Two Towers in there. But like I said earlier, I am planning to read the Lord of the Rings series very, very soon. So I haven't read this one yet, but it will have been read at some point soon. R is for Ricochet by Sue Grafton. No. Rita Hayworth by Stephen King. Haven't read that one, but the Shawshank Redemption film is probably one of my all-time favourite Stephen King book adaptations in terms of the films, and so I definitely want to read that book soon, and I do actually have that. It's a short story, so it's part of a book called the Four Seasons one, and it has in there Shawshank and also the book version of Stand By Me, which is another film that I love, so I do want to read that one. Robert's Rules of Order by Henry Roberts. No. Roman Holiday by Edith Wharton. No. Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Yes. A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. Yes. And A Room with a View by Ian Forster. Yes. Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. No. The Rough Guide to Europe. No. Sacred Time by Ursula Heggie. No. Sanctuary by William Faulkner. No. Savage Beauty. No. Say Goodbye to Daisy Miller by Henry James. No. The Scarecrow of Oz by Frank L. Baum. No. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Not yet, but it is on my shelves. I do want to read it. Seabiscuit, An American Legend by Laura Hillenbrand. No. The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. I haven't read this. I've read some of her essays. Again, they were on my syllabus at uni, but I haven't read this. The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. No. Secrets of the Flesh, A Life of Colette by Judith Thurman. No. Selected Hotels of Europe. Funnily enough, I haven't read that one. Doesn't sound very riveting, does it? Selected Letters of Dawn Powell by Dawn Powell. No, I haven't read that. Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I haven't read yet, but that is probably going to be the next Jane Austen book that I pick up. A Separate Piece by John Knowles. No. Several biographies of Winston Churchill. No. The Rosy Crucifixion, Sexus by Henry Miller. No. The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafron. No. Shane by Jack Schaefer. No. The Shining by Stephen King. I have read and absolutely love. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. No. S is for Silence by Sue Grafton. Haven't read that. Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. No. Small Island by Andrea Levy. No. Snows of Kilimanjaro by Ernest Hemingway. No, but that does sound quite pretty. Snow White and Rose Red by Grimm Brothers. No. Social Origins of Dictatorship and Democracy by Barrington Moore. That sounds quite heavy. The Song of Names by Norman Lebrecht. Songs of Simple Truth. The Complete Poems of Julia de Burgos by Julia de Burgos. No. The Song Reader by Lisa Tucker. No. The Songbook by Nick Hornby. No. The Sonnets by William Shakespeare. Yes, that was on syllabus at university. Sonnets from the Portuguese by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. No. Sophie's Choice by William Styron. No. Speak Memory by Vladimir Nabokov. No. Did I say The Sound and Fury by William Faulkner? If not, the answer is no. The Story of My Life by Helen Keller. A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. No. Stuart Little by E.B. White. No. The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. No. Swan's Way by Marcel Proust. No. Swimming with Giants, Encounters with Whales, Dolphins and Seals by Anne Collette. No. Sybil by Flora Rita Shriver. I have not read. I think that there's a film version of this, which is very, very interesting, so I would be interested in reading the book, but I haven't read it yet. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I haven't read. Tender as the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. No. Terms of Endearment by Larry McMurtry. No. Time and Again by Jack Finney. No. The Time Traveller's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. No. To Have and Have Not by Ernest Hemingway. No. To Kill a Mockingbird by Happily. I have not read. The Tragedy of Richard III by William Shakespeare. No. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. No. The Trial by Franz Kafka, no. The True and Outstanding Adventures of the Hunt Sisters by Elizabeth Robinson, no. Truth and Beauty, A Friendship by Anne Pratchett, no. Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom, no. Ulysses by James Joyce, no. The Unabridged Journals of Sylvia Plath, no. Uncle Tom's Cabin, I haven't read. Jay has read and he liked it, so I might read it at some point. Unless by Carol Shields, The Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne, Vanishing Newspaper by Philip Myers, Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray, Velvet Underground, The Velvet Underground Nico by Joe Harvard, no. Haven't read any of them. The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides, no. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, yes, that was on my reading list at uni. That seems to be a running theme with how many of these I've read have all been ones I've read for uni. Walden by Henry David, wow. Henry David Thoreau, no. Walt Disney's Bambi, no. War and Peace, yes! This one I actually read just because I wanted to, not because I had to read it for uni. Did really like War and Peace. It's long though, obviously. We Owe You Nothing, no. What Colour Is Your Parachute, no. What Happened to Baby Jane by Henry Farrell, no. When the Emperor Was Divine by Julie Otsuka, no. We're almost at the end. Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. I don't know Spencer, but I haven't read the book either. Who Is Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee, no. Wicked, Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire, no. The Wizard of Oz by Frank L. Baum, no. Wuthering Heights, yes, love it, one of my favourites. The Yearling by Marjorie Kinnan, Rawlings, no. And The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion, no. So that is the end. Let's see my horrific results because I had hardly read any of them. Oof. Okay. I've checked 48 out of 339, which is obviously not an excellent total. However, it does say that I've checked more than 70% of quiz takers, so that makes me feel a little bit better about myself. There's definitely some on there that are more like non-fiction-y and music related that I have really no interest in wanting to read, but there are other ones on there that I definitely do want to get to, and this maybe will give me the little push that I need to finally start picking up those books. So that is the Rory Gilmore reading list, aka all of the books that are ever mentioned in all 7 seasons of Gilmore Girls. And so clearly I've got a little bit of work to do before I'm an official Rory Gilmore, but I'm on the way there and I've got the reading list now, so I've got no excuses. I'm just going to start reading them. So there we have it. If you've done this quiz, I'll leave a link in the description down below to the BuzzFeed quiz. So if you want to do it yourself, you can obviously go and see how many you've read. And if you do manage to do the quiz, let me know how many you check off. And if you beat me, it's not that difficult because I didn't have actually read that many. But you know, do the quiz, let me know how you do. And if not, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next time.